Everybody, welcome to week 11 here in Fundamentals of Criminal Law. We're going to have a real brief weekly update. So let me get out of the way and we'll talk about what we've got going on this week. Well, first this week, we are looking at Title 7 of the Penal Code, Chapter 32 specifically, in the Offenses Against Property chapter. So start working on the exam review as you watch the video, as you read the chapter in the Penal Code, and then submit that exam review. This last week, I think all but about 3 of you got 100% on the chapter 9 or discussion number 9. So getting close. I don't know if we're going to make 100% of everybody doing it right, but hey, we're getting very close. Also, remember to take that quiz. Make 100 on it. You got plenty of time to do it, and so do it. Just retake it till you make 100. But you have to make at least a 70 to move on to the next chapter. And then, speaking of the follow-up or the discussion, make sure you get your follow-up post done correctly. On the follow-up post to discussion number 10. And the last thing we've got going on this week is going to be your second case study. Now, just a few things about this. Go back and look at it before you submit it. Have somebody else read it and challenge them to find your mistakes. If you give it to a friend and say, hey, read this, they're going to tell you how great a job you did, pat you on the back and say, fantastic. If you hand it to them and say, hey, I know I've got some mistakes in here, please help me find the mistakes so I can get them corrected before I put this very important paper in. You can make it sound even more important than it is if you want, and then they will probably actually look for mistakes. So try to do that. Couple things to get. Again, this is not a research paper. I think that everybody kind of is aware of that now. The second thing is make sure that the court that this case is heard in is the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. If it says U.S. versus Joe Blow, that is not going to be something in the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. If it says Smith versus California, that's not in the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals. Make sure that the court that heard it is the Texas Court of Criminal Appeals, not the Court of Appeals, the Court of Criminal Appeals, which is a higher court here in Texas, the highest criminal court in Texas. Read carefully through it and make sure you know who is the one that's appealing it. Normally it's going to be the defendant, but when you get a case that goes to the Court of Criminal Appeals, it can and often is going to be the state that is appealing it. What happens is if let's say the defendant said there was an illegal search, and they appealed the decision to the Court of Appeals, and the Court of Appeals said, yeah, that was an illegal search. We're going to throw that evidence out. Now the state appeals it to the Court of Criminal Appeals. So if the Court of Criminal Appeals overturns the lower court's decision, they're not overturning the district court's decision. They are overturning the Court of Appeals' decision. So the state wins. On the other hand, if they uphold the decision, the state loses and the defendant wins. So you got to know who's appealing it. If the defendant appealed it to from the district court to the Court of Appeals and lost, and then appeals it to the Court of Criminal Appeals, and they uphold the decision, again, the defendant loses. But if they overturn the decision, then the defendant is the winner there. So you've got to know who appeals. So read very carefully. I think even on the precedent setting cases, I know there were at least 2, and there might have been 3 students who got the decision wrong because they misread the case. So be very careful about reading the case properly. Review it again, kind of go back through it. And, also, another thing that occasionally happens is you're looking at a dissenting opinion, and that's not the majority decision. So a dissenting opinion will be marked with dissenting opinion somewhere in the paragraph headings that are there. Just get them in by the end of the week by midnight on Thursday, and I will talk to y'all later. Y'all have a great day.